We're already laughing here and having fun. Jen Laffin is here with us, and welcome everyone. And we're going to be talking about some juicy stuff that I wish I knew about like half a decade ago, which is basically how to get out of avoidance and into aligned action. And if you are a high achiever, this definitely is something that you come across. And if you're everyone else, this is also something that you come across. We all kind of stand our own way, right? We all kind of procrastinate. We all avoid certain things, right? For many different reasons that we're going to go into today. And we're going to be sharing our stories and our insights and wisdom and Jen's method around how to move out of that avoidance and into that aligned action because we got goals, we got visions, we got everything, right?
That
And we
is true.
know that we should be getting to it and, handling certain things and taking certain risks and making moves, right? But it's just so easy to postpone it. If there's not a hard deadline, it's like, yeah, tomorrow, whatever, right? Or like there's so much. There's so much. So Jen, welcome to this conversation. Thank you for being here with us. Do you want to share anything specific about you, what you do, how you do it with the audience?
Absolutely. So, Eva, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jen Laffine, and I am a fractional chief momentum officer for solopreneurs. I help solopreneurs do the things that they're avoiding. And I come to this experience and this work. I really do feel like this is where I was meant to end up. And I think you and I first connected, Eva, over human design.
Mm-hmm.
And that when I learned my human design and I'm a generator, when it talked about you have those 3 stages of your life,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Holy cow, this all makes sense to me now." So,
Yeah.
before I did this work, I was a teacher. I taught 4th grade for 9 years. Before that, I was a stay-at-home mom, um, raising my 2 children. But you and I were kind of giggling before we started the live, and that was because you had asked how to say my last name, and I said, "It's Laffine, it rhymes with mean." And you had said, "Well, you're not mean," and we were just giggling about that, but I said, "Oh, but there's a story there." And so I do wanna share that story 'cause I think it's rather funny. Back when I taught 4th grade, which is where I really developed my own system of accountability because we know that in school, the accountability that students have is either something is done or it's not done. Right? And if you either
Mm-hmm.
pass or you fail, there's like no in between. And as a teacher, I really saw that as a problem because there are reasons why sometimes students don't do things. Of course, sometimes it's because they're lazy, right? Or they're
Mm-hmm.
forgetful or they don't have the executive function to be able to handle like homework yet. And I got a reputation with the students in my school, not necessarily with the kids in my class, because the kids in my class were achievers, each at their own level, which was the kind of accountability that I ran. Like, I expected my students to work to the very best of their ability, but that looked different for everyone, which was totally not what school is all about. And my students and I had very good relationship because I knew them as people, not just as students. And I got this reputation of being mean. And one day I was talking to a parent, and it was a parent of a student that was in my classroom after school. And what happened is she had stolen something out of my desk. And I told her, I said, "All right, well, we're going to need to call home and talk to your parents about this and why it's not okay to steal out of a teacher's desk." And when I called the parent and said, "Hello, this is Mrs. Laffine. I'm here with Susie. Susie has something to tell you." And Susie was on the phone on speakerphone and she's like, "Mom, I stole from Mrs. Laffine's desk. I took candy from her bottom drawer." And the mom said, "Is Mrs. Laffine there?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, I guess you don't know what all the kids call you." And I'm like, "Excuse me? Like, I'm calling you to talk to you about your child stealing and you're gonna make this about me? Okay, let's go there. Let's see what this is about." And she said, "They call you Meanie Laffini." Like, that is the nickname that the students had for me that were not in my classroom because they saw, like, the high expectations I had for my kids and that I was holding them accountable each in their own way, like, to outsiders that looking in, it looked like I was being mean, and so I'm like, that is when parent told me that, I'm like, "That is awesome." And she goes, "Well, you're not upset that they call you mean?" And I'm like, No, are you kidding me? Like, I wanna get a cape and, like, bedazzle that on the back of it. It was so awesome. So, that's kind of, like, where my accountability story started before I transitioned into working with
Adults.
entrepreneurs. But it's still yeah, I can be mean if you're not doing what you said you're going to do, but it's always with love, right? So
Well, yeah. It's always how the person needs it, right? And I guess that's what it's all about, really. Like, how do you hold
exactly.
someone accountable in a way that actually helps them? Like, some people really love like that kind of, tough love kind of thing, right? Where others actually need more
Don't.
softness, right? And
Yes.
and a
Yes.
different approach, right? Because they have certain personality types and traumas behind them and everything that just kind of make them react, in a
100%.
totally wrong way if you're
Yeah.
trying to approach them the same way that you did another person. So that's
Yeah.
like one of the key things. But before we dive into that, like actually, I want to illuminate some things. First and foremost, like what are all the ways that we encounter avoidance and how does it kind of express itself, right? Because in my own journey, I remember that, I was like, oh, I'm just lazy, right? I thought like, I'm just lazy. I need to activate myself more. I need to have more energy, right? I need to push myself more. I need to be more disciplined, right? And like all of these things were like all about pushing, right? And later on, I realized like, no, actually, like all this procrastination, right, is actually just avoidance because I had certain, limiting beliefs around what I was doing. I had certain emotions, right? Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of disappointment, all of these things, right? So, how do like people
Mhm.
avoid, right? What are all the manifestations of that so that people know, like, oh, yeah, I'm actually in avoidance right now?
So that's a really interesting question, and I would just want to say, like, that is a very, very common thought that people have that if they are procrastinating or avoiding or whatever, that they take it on as a judgment of themselves and say, "Something must be wrong with me. I need
Yep.
to be more motivated. I need to be more driven. I need to be more active. I need to have a better system. I need to do all of these things." And while sometimes that could be true to a certain degree, it is not always true. And that is because of this concept of the primal brain, which is I learned about this when I started doing this work, and it really revolutionized the approach that I have with my clients, but also how I treat myself and the grace that I give myself when I'm having a hard time getting something done, because I struggle with it all the time too. Just because I move people out of avoidance into action doesn't mean that I don't struggle with it myself. Holy moly, I most certainly do. But the primal brain, just to like nerd out in science for a minute here, the concept of this primal brain is that if you think back to prehistoric days and what life was like for our prehistoric ancestors, the brain was very different back then because there were different things that it had to do to keep humans alive. It had to constantly be on high alert because there could be animals that came in that could threaten their life. There could be ice ages or weather that came through that could cause extinction of the whole human race. So, as a result, that primal brain took on the role of protecting humans. And to do that, it wanted everything to stay the same. Okay. It thrived on familiarity. And anytime something happened that would cause us to do something that is not familiar, it would shut humans down. Now, back in the BC days, this was very important because it ensured the survival of the human race, right? However, as we evolved, and it's now the year 2026, we don't have necessarily the same threats that our ancient ancestor had. However, as our brain evolved, it carried some of that primal brain with us. Okay. And that primal brain is located in the amygdala. It's part of our human brain, our modern human brain. And it still thinks that everything should stay the same. And
Mhm,
I call this our comfort cave. The primal
mhm,
brain wants to keep you in your comfort cave. And anytime you think of doing something that's going to cause you to grow or do something different, something that could potentially be a risk in terms of, and I'm not talking about a life or death risk, I'm talking about something like doing cold calling, right? And
mhm.
how scary that is. They see that as a threat. It sees that as a threat. And so it wants to shut you down.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And the primal brain is partly responsible for controlling our emotions, which is why we procrastinate, which is why we avoid, because we start to feel this
Mhm,
flood of emotion of like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't
mhm.
think that this is safe. Um, So when we talk about doing hard things and moving our business forward, what happens is we go into this avoidance habit because our primal brain is essentially trying to shut us down. Once you know about that and learn that that is just a protection strategy, it's not a real risk, then we're able
Mhm.
to engage our analytical mind, which is the part of our mind that says, all right, let's make a plan and do it. So I
Mhm.
come in the middle. I come in and help people move from that self-doubt comfort cave out into taking action and
Yeah.
realizing that you are the one in control, not your self-doubt, not your
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's so interesting as you shared that. Like, there's so many layers to this. It's
Mm.
really fascinating, right? Like, the more I dove into this, the more I started to understand myself and why I was like procrastinating and avoiding and all of this, right? The more I learned about all the layers, and as you said, like the primal brain, right? And keeping us in that comfort zone, right? And so anything that pushes us beyond that edge of the comfort zone is unfamiliar, and the mind wants to keep us there, right? But there's so many other things, right, that are kind of standing in the way. Um there's so many emotions, right? So many things that, like, if I do this, if I make this move, there's a lot at stake. So
Uh-huh.
releasing those emotions, that anxiety around, hey, this is what I stand to realistically lose, right? It's like 50-50 if I take this risk, right? If I launch this thing, it might be the success that I want it to be, or it might be a huge flop and I'm going to lose money or embarrass myself or whatever it is, right? So you're anticipating some kind of a negative emotion, right? Some kind of
Yes.
overwhelm or, pressure or failure or whatever it is. And so you're trying to avoid that emotion. So making peace with that is like one of the key things, right? And kind of like toning down that inner dialogue and those fears and everything. And just it all really comes down or kind of connects back to the nervous system, right? As you said, the amygdala, that part of the brain. So the nervous system really, like, if we are triggered, if we are in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, like if we are in functional freeze, which the majority of the population is in, like functional freeze is like you really want to take action, you
Yep.
can do certain things on a daily level, right? Like the maintenance stuff, but like anything where you need to push yourself beyond, it's like I can't do it. I know I'm capable of it, but I just can't make myself do it, right? And so the nervous system really dictates like the capacity that we have, the energetic capacity as well as the emotional capacity to, hold ourselves through the journey and hold ourselves through the uncertainty and everything else. So it's like it's a big deal. So I'd love to also hear from you, like, what have you found along the way? What are those crucial pieces, right, to like big dominoes that you tackle along the way to help people kind of get out of that avoidance and into
So
action?
that's a really good question. And I have a couple things to say about that. Number one, like I think my life changed as far as shaming myself over being a procrastinator. When I learned like the real cause of procrastination is that we want to avoid the discomfort that comes along with doing hard things. Why do we feel that discomfort? Because the primal brain wants you to stay the same. It does not want you to grow. And once I realized that procrastination is just avoiding discomfort, it was just such a game changer for me. I stopped like shaming myself and feeling guilty over being this high achiever who can't do things, right? Because that was being a high achiever was something that was a part of my identity. The other thing is I learned about Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor's work as far as what happens when our body experiences that discomfort. So when you start to do something like, let's say, you say to yourself, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get started and I'm going to give myself 5 minutes. And if I still feel uncomfortable or it still feels yucky after 5 minutes, then I can quit. Like that is one of the best strategies you can use because often it's just getting started that is the hard part.
Mm,
And the reason for that is Dr. Taylor pointed out and shared her research, which is when we have those uncomfortable emotions that flood our system when we're doing something hard or challenging that we've never done before, that those emotions actually wash through our body and are gone in about 90 seconds. So she said, if you can do something hard for 90 seconds, chances are you'll be in the clear and you can continue,
mm,
which I thought was just fascinating because that's why the hardest part is often getting started,
mhm.
right?
Yep.
And so a lot of the work that I do is helping people get started and
Mhm.
having that accountability component of helping them understand why they're experiencing that doubt, helping them engage that analytical brain and say, like, okay, I understand this is just my fear not wanting me to grow. And then adding that accountability component into it where I ask them, okay, I want you, you're going to sit and do this. You told me you were going to do this. Please send me a text message when it's done so that they know that someone is checking in. So if I don't get that text message, I'm back on the phone to them saying, like, hey, what's going on? Like, did something come up? Is there some doubt coming in? Let's talk about that. And let's do this again. That's what I call accountability without the angst. I
Yeah.
also wanted to say something too about you had mentioned that sometimes when you're a procrastinator, you're thinking, like, I don't want to do this. There's so much that I could lose. There's a lot at stake. What I would also do in that instance is I would push back a little and I would say, what's at stake? What do you stand to lose? Because our brain uses confusion as one of the self doubt roadblocks to keep us from moving forward. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is if you say, like, I have a lot to lose, and someone asks you, well, what is it exactly that you have to lose? Once you start to name those things, you realize there's really not much that you have to lose. It's really not that risky to do this Substack live. It's really not risky to share your newsletter. Your brain has made this catastrophe story up about how horrible something could happen. And when you really stop to take a look at it, it's like, it's really not that big of a deal. You can just do it. Like I read on Substack, someone said, my brain was giving me like 2,000 reasons of why I shouldn't do something. And I sat down and I did it. And it took me 3 minutes. She was like, and I've
Mhm.
spent the last 9 months worrying about doing this one thing and it's
Exactly.
done in 3 minutes.
Exactly. The delusions inside of the mind are like so crazy in what they do on so many levels, right? Just like what you just said now. It's like, oh, it took me 5 minutes and I was
Yeah.
thinking that it was going to be this awful, dreadful,
Terrible.
long task, right? And there's this girl out that just has ADHD, right? And she's on TikTok and she's like, how long did it take me to do this, right? And like organize my bathroom drawers, right? And like, I thought it was going to take 3 hours. It took me like 13 minutes, right? And
Yeah.
so she's constantly doing this stuff to kind of break through people's limiting beliefs around how long it takes to do some of this stuff that looks overwhelming, right? And so that's the whole thing. But the brain assumes something because it's unfamiliar, right? And it's like, okay, this is probably got like a long time, or gonna be boring, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be confusing. It's gonna like blah 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 is going to bring up all of this negative stuff, right? So we need to kind of work with that, right? We need to break through that. And as you said, like just kind of starting, right? Like that's really the one of the key things, just getting started. And that's one of the things that I really love. Like I changed a lot, and I talked about this in my previous lives and blogs around infusing pleasure, right, and pleasure stacking, right? Bridget loves the 5 minute rule,
I
right?
love
Or
that.
5 minute, 5 second. What was it
5
Mel
minute rule.
Robbins? Okay. Oh, the 5 minute rule. Okay. But yeah, like just kind of getting started and like pleasure stacking, right? So for me, it's like, okay, I need to do this thing that I know is boring, that I know is hard because I've done it 100 other times, and it's like I gotta do this again, right? And so this is where the procrastination comes in, like one of those logical ones, right? And so just to kind of work with that, I was like, okay, let's stack pleasure, right? Because pleasure is the primary nervous system regulator. And so let's light that candle. Like that for me is that prep work, right? Like, let me just light this candle next to my laptop, right? Let me put on these sexy lights. Let me put on this awesome music, right? Let me just kind of get my cozy little blanket or cushions or whatever it is, or like let me get in bed and work on this, right? Whatever it is, I just make that right super pleasurable, and I remove the pressure to just immediately start and get to it as like, no, let me ease into it, let me just kind of
Mhm.
and with that, like it actually helped me a lot to really get started. And then as soon as I would get started in like 5 minutes, you would see like, oh, this is not that bad, this is manageable, right? But for other things, it's much harder, right? Because there really could be something at stake, right? Like you said, I love what you shared about like really breaking through those illusions and putting things down on paper, right? This is why I also love mirror work among one of the other
Mm.
techniques that I use. It's like I want to sit in front of myself and tell myself, "Oh, you think that there's something at stake? Okay, what is at stake, right?" And through EFT tapping, also, there's a whole process around literally this, right? And like naming what's at stake, what you fear that you're going to lose, right? And then working with the emotion that's under that and clearing that and shifting into the upside, right? But it's the mirror work and, like, that radical honesty with yourself and actually saying things out loud, actually putting them
Yes.
down on paper and seeing that the list is not as big as you thought, right? Or the things are
Right.
not as scary as you thought, and, like,
Right.
okay, it hits you really, the truth slaps you, and you're like, "Okay, let's move on, like, this is the nothing," right? So that happens a lot of the time. So I love that approach that you share, right? Around, you know, putting all of that on paper and like really looking the truth in the
Yeah.
eyes,
What is the truth and
basically.
what is the fiction? Because just because something feels true doesn't mean it is, right? It could just be your brain, your primal brain throwing a self-doubt roadblock at you that is keeping you stuck in your comfort cave. So I've identified 6 self-doubt roadblocks that I see most often in
Mhm,
my clients, and I tell them, like, when one of these comes up, it's a sign you're leaving your comfort cave. So those are procrastination, when you start procrastinating, perfectionism, when you start expecting perfect, comparison, when you're comparing yourself to others and feeling like you're not good enough or not far enough, confusion. I don't know what to do to get started. Well, let's make a list. What do you need to do? Because your brain is
mhm,
making you think there's 800 things and really there's only 5.
mhm,
So, okay, procrastination, perfectionism, comparison, confusion, imposter fear is one
mhm,
of them. And then shoulds. So when you start hearing
mhm,
should, you really should be farther along. You really should be doing this. Imposter
mhm,
fear is I don't feel qualified to be doing this work. Who am I to charge this much money for something? Anytime you experience one of those, it's a good sign that you're on a growth pattern. And so I teach my clients that when you experience one of those, don't take it as a sign you're doing something wrong. Take it as a flag that you're doing something right, that you're going in the
mhm,
direction that your future self needs you to go. And that also has been a really big game changer. Um, I also want to say, like you talked about adding pleasure in. For me, rest is a pleasure. So I don't know, have you
mhm.
ever used a Pomodoro timer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that works great for me. It works great for a lot of my clients where you work in 25 minutes and then you get a 5-minute break. And I always tell myself, if I can finish this in the 25 minutes, then I can take like a 15-minute break. Like I make it extra juicy. So then I am
Mhm.
busted a move to get it done because I want that bigger guilt-free break, right? So,
Mhm, exactly, and I love that, like, I don't usually use the Pomodoro because, like, I get so focused on something, and then if I hear the Pomodoro going off, I'm like,
yeah.
"Ah, no, shut up, right, leave me alone," like, I'm in flow mode, right, I don't
Yeah.
want anything interrupting my
Yeah.
flow, so, like, I don't use the Pomodoro anymore, but I do, like, have a natural clock, I guess,
Mhm.
inside of me where I'm like, "Okay, this is kinda becoming a little heavy, right, let me step back," and in that moment, like, I always have some great music, and I put on my dancing playlist, and I get up and I dance and I move
Yeah.
my energy, right? Or I go out and I go to the store, grab something, whatever, right? But I move my energy and then I come back, to whatever it is that I was doing, right? And just infusing even more pleasure. Sometimes I'm like, "Okay, like, my brain hurts right now after working on this sales page, email, whatever it is, for, like, 2 hours. Let me take a bubble bath," right? And then in the
Mhm.
bath, as I kinda let go of things,
Yes.
the
Yes.
more kind of comes to the surface, right? So those things are awesome, but, one of the things that you mentioned, reminded me of something, which is really that a lot of the times, the procrastination can also come from that misalignment. Right? Because the shoulds, as you said, that last thing, the shoulds. It's like, I should be doing this. Well, if it's a should, you're pushing yourself into it. It's not a want. It's not a desire, right? It's not something that
Yep.
is really pulling you. It's something that you're pushing yourself towards, right? And the more that I got into alignment, right, with my human design, with, my vision and what I truly want in my heart, right, and came back to myself, the more I stopped doing the shoulds. Right, and the more that I started doing the things that I actually wanted to do, and then delegating the rest, or if I was the only one that could do it, right? It's like, okay, now we activate all the other strategies, right? Because now I actually do need to do this thing, and it is a part of what is in alignment for me. Is just the boring part, and like, okay, I really have to, take care of this thing, right? But that alignment is crucial, right? And that nervous system is crucial, and then taking care of the delusions in the mind, that's another
Yes.
thing. And
Well,
what
and I
else would
also
you?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, like, what are some other things that you tackle with your clients to kind of get them out of that avoidance and into?
Well, I want to, like, add something on to what you had said too, because this is also something that I tell my clients all the time, if you have something like you make yourself a to-do list every week and there's something that's riding like from one list to the next week to the next week to the next week, and you're not doing it for a reason, ask yourself, why am I not doing this? Because if it is something where you do not feel in alignment with anymore, take it off your list. Because what happens is every time you move from week to week to week to week, you are making a withdrawal from your self-trust bank because you're proving to yourself, here's another week where I didn't do what I said I was going to do. All right. And your self-trust bank, like I tell my clients, imagine this like piggy bank inside of you, this bright pink piggy bank. Every time you show up to do something that you say you're going to do, you make a deposit in your self-trust bank. Every time you don't, you make a withdrawal. The problem is that we tend to make more withdrawals when we're procrastinating and we're not replacing that with deposits. The self-trust bank is what represents your confidence and your belief in yourself to be able to do new, hard things. And so they don't necessarily even have to be big deposits. It could be like you sit down, you have 3 tasks that you have to do. Every time you do one, you're making a deposit. You have a conversation with someone that you maybe were not looking forward to, you're making a deposit. You publish your newsletter, you're making a deposit. Okay. But when you
Yep.
don't, you're making those withdrawals, and that's what's robbing your self trust. So if you have those things that are going week to week to week, it's time to say, all right, let's take a look. Let's step back and take a look. What is going on here? Why are you not doing this? And if they say, like, I just don't feel it, okay, great. Let's take it off your list. Because now it doesn't mean, it just means not now. It doesn't mean not ever. Right. So that's important too. And why when working with my clients, especially in the momentum room, which is my small group, I can see like these are the weeks that you've been talking about doing this now for 3 weeks and it's not getting done. Why don't we just take it off your list? Because I'd rather have you have your self trust intact than it gets pinged every day that you close out a day that you didn't do that thing and you look at your list, you're like, ugh, tomorrow,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. That self-trust, and I love what you shared about that self-trust bang because it's like it's so crucial for the entire process. Absolutely. And that allowing, I find like really the whole one of the big things was allowing, right? And not shooting myself into things, right? And so it's like we have the preconceived like opinion around how things are supposed to look or how they're supposed to be done, or like this is the best time to tackle things. This is the optimum way to do it, right? And we fall for those things instead of actually listening to ourselves, right? And so one of the things that I really loved in my own process was um I realized like that the most important thing for me was to find ways to move out of procrastination and avoidance, right? Instead of just doing the thing. Like my goal was not just to do the thing. My goal was to find a way to overcome the procrastination and avoidance, right? So my goal was the process, not the finishing of the task. And so anytime that I would find myself, procrastinating and doing whatever, where like I want to do this thing, like I would sit with myself and allow myself, like, I don't want to do it. Awesome. You don't want to do it. Like you know you should or whatever, but you don't want to do it today. Cool. Let's allow that.
Uh-huh.
But don't go and distract yourself with your phone or answering the messages
Yes.
and the emails and the whatnot.
Mhm.
You right now you're supposed to be doing this. So in this time frame, you're gonna sit down and just do nothing. You're just gonna sit with yourself, sit in front of the mirror or whatever it is, right? And just think about this thing, right? And allow yourself to not do it or allow yourself to go out for a walk sometimes and like, okay, I don't feel like I don't have the energy for it. Let's see what shifts if you do go out for that walk. If you do go for that bubble bath or whatever it is, let's see if the energy shifts. And a lot of times it does shift, right?
Uh-huh.
So the whole process I found like when you integrate self love into it and this
Mhm.
desire to actually find a way to that works for you to overcome everything, everything starts to click into place when you allow yourself to not do it or do it a different way or try something else or whatever it is. And with that also I just want to share that around working with our unique energy. And that's another like should, right? Like you should wake up at 5, 6, whatever AM. Like the morning is the most productive and the blah, 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 right? First of all, so much is based around the male physiology and energy and cycles, right? So are you listening to male or female advice, right? Like, which one is right for you? But second of all, really, like, honoring how our energy works
Mhm.
and, what times of day work for what. Like, for me, I definitely, like, love the night. I love like, a night owl,
Mm,
right? It's that time that I'm most productive when everyone else is asleep, and it's
I was asleep.
after midnight, and it's like, I have all the ideas, I'm doing my best writing, I'm doing my best offer creation, like, everything is the best after
Yeah,
midnight.
yeah,
So I'm like, I know it's gonna happen after midnight, and I allow myself then that I to flip my day.
yeah.
Right, and it was I felt so guilty in the beginning. It's like, wait, I woke up at 10 AM, right, or 11 or whatever, right? Like, I stayed up until 4, right? I was like, "Oh my god," right? All of these things, I would be like, "No, no, no, this is not how you're supposed to do it," right? But then I allowed myself to flip things over, and it's like, "Okay, I know I'm gonna be working on things in the evening for at least 2, 3 hours, so I get to chill during the day for 2, 3 hours and have a bubble bath in the afternoon instead of the evening, right? And so allowing yourself to do things really your way that really truly works with your energy, with your moods, with your cycle, right? Everything. The more you follow your energy and work with it instead of against it, I think the better, your results, the better your energy, right? So
I think that
what do you have
also
to
for me, like for the work that I do for a lot of especially early stage entrepreneurs, that whole belief of like I have to work 8 to 5 every day and I have to work 40 or more hours a week, like that's an employee mindset,
mm,
not an entrepreneurial mindset because an
mm,
entrepreneur, if you don't have client obligations, like you work at what time that's what's best for you. Now, I'm just the opposite of you. I'm up at 4 every morning and it is like my most productive time of the day, but do not talk to me after 3 PM. Like I'm out. I'm usually like taking a nap by then. But yes, it's also like you said, giving yourself permission and not following those conditioned shoulds and being able to question that. But I do have a lot of clients who are like, they feel like they're not being productive enough because they're not, working the way that they're used to. And I'm just like, well, that's an employee mindset.
Oh yeah, and that's a big thing as well, of like allowing that rest, especially for high achievers, right? And like getting out of the 9 to 5 mentality and all of it. It requires really kind of recalibration inside of your nervous system, right? Because your nervous system is freaking out. It's like, I can't stop now, right? Like, you think about stopping work, at 3 p.m. and it's like, no, I could be doing more. Like, of
Yeah.
course, as an entrepreneur, you could be working 24/7.
Yeah.
Like,
Or you could take Fridays off. Like I don't
oh,
work on Fridays. That's always been my thing is like
exactly.
I don't see clients on Fridays. I tend to not work unless I work by choice. And
Yeah.
I've done this from day one of being an entrepreneur. And some people are like, are you kidding me? Like, how do you do that? And I'm just like, I
Mm,
just don't schedule myself. That's like my expectation.
yeah. Yeah. But there is that fear of, like, falling behind, right? Or not getting after your goals, like, as fast as you wanna get after them, like, all of these things, and so, there is that component of the nervous system, right? Which is then triggering, those thoughts and beliefs and emotions, right? And so we need to work bottom up. We need to, really normalize this in our body and make it feel safe in our body. And that's another thing that, really, as you talked about in the beginning, like that comfort zone, right? And we are
Mhm.
going beyond it into the unknown. One of the most beautiful and transformational practices that I've personally done was somatic visualization. And
Mhm.
literally taking whatever it is that I'm thinking of doing or manifesting, right? And then making this big risky move or going after this opportunity or whatever it is, right? I would just close my eyes and spend 15 minutes thinking about this thing, right?
Absolutely.
And really feeling in my body like, okay, how do I feel around this, right? Is there a contraction in me? Am I like, oh my God, right? Or is there an expansion in me, right? And tapping into the expansion and really, enjoying that and normalizing that, right? Normalizing, for example, taking a bubble bath in the middle of the day, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to imagine myself doing that. And so what is happening in my context? Like, it's okay if, people are waiting for their response to the DMs, right? Like, I'm not obligated to answer, messages within minutes, right? And things like that. Like just allowing yourself, whatever it is, like really in the moment, in that visualization, telling yourself all the things that you should believe, right? Like it's
Yes.
okay. It actually totally
Yes.
is, right? But like you
Yes.
just logically can't, convince yourself of it in the moment. But when you actually do it in visualization, when you actually like put your hand on your heart, then you're like, yeah, actually this is safe. And you also give that logical part of your brain, right? All the answers. Why? Like it actually relaxes and you get
Well,
to breathe into any contraction, any like fear, right? And release it from your system. And then with that, again, all parts of your brain are online and you're not in fight or flight and you can actually think in a different way, right? Instead of that activation keeping you in that limited thinking, right?
I think what's happening there, like I explain that as when you are doing that visualization, you are calming down the primal brain. Because remember, the primal brain hates anything that's not certain. It hates the unknown. So by doing that mental rehearsing, you are showing it that it already like that you already are because it can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined.
Yep,
And
that's
so
it.
you're giving it a roadmap to follow. So in the momentum room, we do something called next level vision reels, which is just that where we create it's based off of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, but we create like 90-second videos that we watch that incorporate like what is your next level self? What are the things that you believe? What are the things that you've done? How are you feeling? How are you showing up? What are the mantras that you are, practicing and the powerful thoughts that you want to be thinking? And then exposing our brain to that on a daily basis. Again, it can't tell what's real and what's not. You are already a seven-figure earner according to your next level vision reel. So getting to that seven figures or whatever your goal is much easier because your primal brain isn't going to block you as much.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking of doing
Exactly.
a workshop about that in May. Um,
That would be fantastic. That would
yeah,
actually be fantastic. I would have loved to have that before. Yeah, because like, as you said, like, that's a powerful part, right? Like, normalizing what is unfamiliar, right? If we can make the unfamiliar seem familiar, then you're walking into it because you've already envisioned it. You already went through the thousand different ways that it could unfold and kind of went down each path and
yes,
felt how you felt and cleared, the emotions and the contraction and made it feel safe and like, okay, now there's nothing left, right? And like it's now normal, it's now safe, it's now no big deal. And when
exactly.
it's a no big deal, when it
You
becomes a
could
no
take
big deal,
action.
yes, you can actually take that action, right? But I'd love to hear more about what you're doing inside of that. What did you call it? Momentum room?
The Momentum Room is my small group for women-owned small businesses. It started out as an an accountability program, but it's really evolved into so much more than that. So we do have that component of the accountability where you share what you're doing, you share what you're working on, you share whether you did it or not. So we do have that. We talk about what happens if you didn't do it, like what came up, what thought were you thinking, what got prioritized. And sometimes things get prioritized that deserve priority, right? Like we had a member who lost her pet. Well, when you lose a pet, the whole world is going to stop. But don't make
Yes.
yourself feel guilty for not showing up to your business that week, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
you're needed elsewhere. So we do that component. We also spend a lot of time talking about our future self identity and making decisions and leading and showing up from the place of where we want to go for that very reason that we just talked about, which is we want to give our primal brain a little like warm up of what's coming so that it doesn't try to block us. We have a tremendous community that supports each other and that just from being in that space and being around watching other people do things like has a tendency to like, what they say, like the rising tide lifts all boats, right? So that's a huge
Mm-hmm.
component of it. And then I do monthly workshops on topics around my goal getter framework, which is the five components of reaching a goal. So, precision planning, intentional action, mindset, accountability without the angst, and then future led identity.
Mm,
teaching people about those topics and just really diving in, getting hands-on in a workshop once a month. We also do co-working in the momentum room where we'll just open a Zoom room a couple times a month and people will come in and they will work on something. My only requirement is you have to work on something you've been avoiding because there's power of being in a space with all people who are doing hard things for the same hour that just makes you want to get it done.
mhm.
Um, but
Yep,
yeah, I love it. I love the dynamic. I love the progress that people are making and the way that they're starting to think about themselves differently, is just really, really just a beautiful thing to be able to witness.
absolutely. I love that. And what you shared about the mindset, right? Around, if you didn't do the task, right? Let's talk about why. And that's
Mhm,
the thing, right? Like that accountability without angst. And that's one of the things that also revolutionized everything for me was like actually sitting down and investigating, like, why haven't I done this? Right.
mhm,
And having that space, right, to investigate that and to really go into it and figure out why, like, what was actually, like, what were the thoughts that
mhm.
went through my mind before I decided to procrastinate or go to do something else and avoid this specific task, right? And this is where you get to discover that, like, okay, I was thinking, ugh, this is gonna take so long. Ugh, this is gonna be so boring. Ugh, this is gonna be overwhelming, whatever it is, right? And then you get to really work with that, right? And clear that away and or shift your thinking around things, right? If you need to, or clear the emotions, whatever is the real issue, you get to work on it, right? It's not just like, oh, you haven't done it, here's
Yeah,
some consequences and
yes, yes,
go after it again tomorrow. And like
yeah,
that's it.
next week, right? Or let's take it off your list. So if we were to break down, like, let's say you came back and you're like, "I didn't do this," and you had shared that you were thinking the thoughts going through your head, like, something was like, "I don't know how to get started." One of the things that I would do is say, "All right, let's grab a piece of paper. We're gonna make a list. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. I want you to brainstorm every single thing that you think you need to do to make this happen, and
Mhm.
then we're gonna know exactly what you need to do. We're gonna put them in
Maybe.
chronological order, and you're gonna just start checking off your list," right? People will say, like, "I don't know how much time it's gonna take." "All right, well, tell me the things you need to do, now estimate the time." Like, I take it
Mhm.
like, I can see those blind spots that the primal brain is, like, again, creating stories, making things, like, into a big, huge deal that they don't have to be, and just saying, like, "Okay, well, what is really going on here?" Right? And helping them see that it's really not as confusing, it's not as hard, it won't take as long. Even, like, "I don't wanna do this because it's boring." "Okay, well, what exactly is boring about it? Tell me specifically. Okay, how can we make that a little less boring?"
Mhm.
Versus just going with
Yeah,
the big excuse of like, "This is boring." Maybe you need to like light a candle, or maybe you need to go to the Panera and work there because getting out of your environment might help. Um,
exactly.
just being able to offer those suggestions is often just enough to get somebody unstuck.
Exactly. It's all figure outable, right? You just gotta figure
It
out what
is.
exactly is standing in the way, right? And not allowing for that vagueness, right? That is there that then kind of gets you into procrastination and avoidance and everything, right? And just kind of you're going over in that the other direction immediately. Like, no, just sitting with it and actually like
Yeah,
looking at it. And that's I feel like that's the big domino, right? Okay, if you allow yourself to sit with what is to kind of investigate those thoughts, right? And then work with that, like everything else kind of falls into line, right? And with that radical honesty, right? Like either, "Hey, this is boring," or radical honesty around, "Hey, like, I hate doing this, and I okay,
right.
now I know that I need to change something. Now I know that this is misaligned," right? Or, "I wish I could, delegate this to someone." Well, sure, let's then delegate that,
Let's
right?
find someone.
Um,
Right,
exactly. So
right.
whatever it is, right? Sitting with yourself and figuring out what specifically is blocking it, right? And then you can easily clear that.
For some clients that even I had a client who was, a couple years ago who was writing a book. And this would be a big business changing book, and they just couldn't get themselves to, like, prioritize their writing time, and so I said to them, "All right, so 3 mornings a week, you and I are gonna get together on Zoom, and I'm gonna do my work at my desk, and you're gonna write." And that way I know you're working and I'm working and you're going to get your writing done that way. And we did that for like 5 weeks until they got their book written. Right. So
Mhm,
there will sometimes be a client who I know it's just because they haven't scheduled and made it a priority and they're letting their fear drive their decision making, where I'll say, okay, well, let's get on Zoom together. 20 minutes, you're going to have it done. I don't mind sitting here
mhm,
with you while you do it. So
mhm. I love your coaching though. I love like, everything that you shared, like the entire approach and like how you're approaching your clients and everyone. I
thank
love it.
you.
I love
Thank
it. I
you.
love it. I love it. I wish I had someone like you back in the day, right? When I was starting my journey and I was procrastinating so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, even when I was in, group coaching and, memberships and whatever it was at that time, right? It's like, yeah, the procrastination was still there, right? You don't, it didn't have a chance to like really, understand why it's happening. And a lot of people didn't really understand. Like, I feel like it was just in the last maybe 5 years that we really dove deep into where all this procrastination comes from, right? And figured
Mhm.
out, the brain parts of it, the nervous system parts of it, the emotional parts of it, right? The logical parts of it, and then, put it all together and understood how to work with everything on every layer, right?
Right. Right. Because
Exactly.
there are always lots of layers to avoidance. You just need someone in there who's going to excavate them with you. So that's what I love to do. That's why when we started this event and we were talking about being mean, like, because I can tell when someone is just avoiding something because they're being lazy and when they're
Hmm.
avoiding it because there's something really going on underneath. And I think
Hmm.
you know, that's a really important distinction to be able to see. So
Yeah.
you're not doing something I said, I'm going to come after you and I'm going to find you. And it's not to like make you feel bad about not doing it. It's to find out what the heck is going on that you're not doing
Yeah.
this so that we can change it. Right. So we
Yeah.
can understand it
Exactly.
and turn it around.
Exactly. Sometimes clients avoid literally that, like avoid telling you, right? Like that they procrastinated or why they procrastinated because like the change is going to happen after that, right? And then the
The fear of
part of you,
success. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And then the part of you is like, I don't actually want to change this, so I'm just going to pretend that I did this work or whatever it is, or just not share what is going on. But
Well, and when you see somebody, like when you're in the momentum room and you're seeing me every week and you're seeing your co-team members every week, it's like we know if you did it or you didn't. But we also have created the safe space where people come in, they're like, nope, I didn't do that. And I know I need to do it. And it's going to be a priority this week. Like
mm,
it's that safety is everything too.
absolutely. And let me ask you, what do you do when someone is just lazy?
I don't work with people who are just lazy.
There you go. Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah.
I won't work with someone that I don't think is capable of doing what they want to do. And I think like you can do anything you want. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. But if you're going to be an excuse maker, I'm not the right person for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That makes
And
me mean.
before
That's why I'm meanie Laffini. So
no, 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 that makes you perfect. I would love to kind of just do a little recap for everyone around this because this is such an important thing, and I want to illuminate for them some of the layers, right? Around what it really takes to get out of that avoidance and into taking that action and beyond, your framework. Um, just kind of talking about the layers, right? And I feel like the first layer is always alignment. Like, do I actually want to go after this goal, or I'm shooting myself into this, right? And so if the thing is misaligned, everything else after that is going to be 10 times harder, right? Because you're doing something that you don't actually want to do. So I feel like that's like the first big piece. And then after that, there's the mental piece, right, and the delusions that we talked about in this conversation, and how our mind is lying to us around what the task entails or what's on the
the
other side of it.
stories. Mhm.
Yes, the stories and the limiting beliefs and the misconceptions and the things like that. And there's also the emotions, right? Like the fear of success and maybe overwhelm and anxiety and things like that. So clearing those, and like one of my favorite tools is EFT tapping. I love it so much because
Mm.
I can quickly, do this work. And then another thing is just energetic, right? Because and the nervous system as well, right? Because we could be in that functional freeze, we literally could not have the energy, right? And we need to actually focus and lift our energy up first, right? And
Mhm.
get out of that freeze so that we actually have that healthy energy to mobilize and go after something, right? And this is such an important piece because a lot of people shame themselves for
Mhm.
not having the energy, right? But
Mhm.
that shame is not the good motivator.
No, never is.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like a lot of us have used or are using shame as a motivator, right? But shame is a primary nervous system dysregulator, especially for
Yeah.
women, right? And so you're trying to shame yourself into action and be like, like, oh, like, I need to do this. And if I don't do it, I'm lazy or whatever. Like,
No.
whatever it is, shame is not a good motivator, because it just dysregulates the system. So if you can enjoy the process, that is
Mhm.
going to get you to, get into it, right? So I love that 5-minute rule, right? And giving yourself those 5 minutes to just kind of get started and dip your toe in. And then from there, like you just kind of enter flow and it's like, oh my God, it's already been 20 minutes and I've been
Yep.
on this.
And look, I'm
It
done
felt,
already.
yeah, exactly. It felt like five. Like, okay. So yeah, so there's all the levels, right? All the levels, and then on top of the levels, can you just share with us again the framework that you use, and then invite people over into the momentum room so that they can
Oh, of
experience
course.
that with you.
So my goal getter framework has the 5 pillars. They are precision planning, intentional action, accountability without the angst, mindset, and future-led identity. And those are the 5 pillars of all the work that I do and that I've seen if something is breaking down in someone's goal journey of reaching their business goals or any goal that they have, it's usually in one of those 5 areas.
Mm.
So it's a great diagnostic tool to use as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Momentum Room is my small group for women small business owners. And we actually are in a launch right now, which is beautiful that it coincides with this. But you can learn more about that on my website, which is jenlaffin.com and then backslash TMR for the Momentum Room. It's a great program. I know everybody thinks that about their program, but we just had a meeting right before this and it's like my highlight of the week. I absolutely love it. So I'd love to see anybody there. And then I also have a podcast, which is called the Goal Getter Guide Podcast. New episodes every Wednesday. This week I'm talking about accountability and how I came up with my accountability without the angst and sharing how I have dropped out of many programs because the way they did accountability did not work for me. So
Mm.
I'd love to chat with anybody. You can always message me. You're on Substack as well.
There you go. We'll put Jen's link below in the blog so you can go and follow her and go check out everything else that she's got going on. But yeah, and also let us know if you have any questions. Drop a comment. We'll
Hmm.
answer all your questions. But I love this. I love this conversation. Thank you,
Me
Jen,
too.
for sharing what you're doing, giving
Thank
all of
you.
those insights, illuminating all of the things and all the blocks and all the ways that we can clear those blocks. Thank you again for the conversation.
Well,
And
thank you. Thank you. And
you're
if
so
anyone's
welcome.
interested in the Next Level Vision Reel workshop, let me know that as well, because if there's enough people interested, I'm going to put together an offer for that.
There you
So
go.
thank you
Well,
for having me. This has been great.
absolutely. And I think that would be a great offer, actually. Like, that would be a great workshop. Like,
Wonderful.
Abs absolutely using that motivation and to kind of close off with that, there's a big difference between discipline and devotion. And I feel like, discipline is that masculine energy and pushing, right? And
Mhm.
devotion is when you're really focused on that vision, really
Oh, I
focused
love
on
that.
the emotions on the other side, the identity on the other side, and everything that is so juicy that you're working towards and you're focused on that and committed to it, right? And then you're pulled by it. And so with that,
I
it's like you
love
don't you
that.
don't need that discipline. You get to have that consistency, and that consistency is not the same as discipline. It's not everything looks the same every single day. But maybe you consistently check in with yourself and see what your energy levels are and consistently work with what you have and work with your energy levels, right? And work with your blocks instead of against them and fighting them. So consistency gets to look different, right? But we're devoted to our best selves, to that
That is
vision, right?
great.
And
That is
yeah, and
beautiful.
and letting that pull us. So guys, if you're following that vision and you're finding yourself procrastinating, avoiding, needing a little bit of accountability, Jen is the one to go to. So go check out
Thank
what
you.
she's got going on. Check out her podcast, check out her blogs, get more insights around all of this. And then I'll see you again next week. Until then, stay blessed. Bye, everyone.